Okay, what we want to do in this video is get closer and closer to the idea of the ability to analyze the efficiency of markets. So in a previous video, we calculated not the aggregate demand, the market demand curve. Okay, so in a previous video, we calculated the market demand curve. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take that market demand curve and we're going to say that it is the marginal benefit curve. So we're going to have to talk about a few things, and this concept will be explained over two videos. Okay, now still always talking about demand. So a demand schedule, all the demand schedule shows is the different combinations of price and quantity demanded. We are fully aware that when price changes, quantity demanded changes, and the previous three videos, which I hope you understood, explain why the demand curve slopes downwards and the law of demand. Okay, so what we're saying here is that if I just simply graph the previous demand schedule, I get the demand curve, and there's absolutely nothing crazy about that. Okay, now what we're going to say is there are two ways to look at the demand curve, and just for the moment, let's just say we're talking about the market demand curve, but it doesn't matter, you can look at it both ways, but the market demand curve is what we're discussing. Okay, the horizontal method, which tells you the quantity demanded at each price, and this is the way that we've been doing it thus far. So look, if we go out from €20, we say at a price of €20, 4 shirts will be bought. This is the demand for t-shirts per week, far more likely than thousands. And if we go out from €40, we will see that 2 shirts per week will be purchased. Okay, the horizontal method, at each price, what quantity would be purchased or demanded. That's all it's saying, right? And we've got that. We know that. We've been doing that all the way along. So looking at this, we've got the horizontal method, and now we're going to look at the vertical method. It works in the opposite way. It begins at the bottom, and it works its way up to the demand curve and then across. Now, this is very important. This tells us what the maximum price that the next consumer, or the consumer of that good, would be willing to pay for a given unit of a good. Okay, so we're just talking about the next one person. Okay, so what we're saying here now is if I go up from 1 and I go across, what we're saying is if we as a firm only produce one good, the maximum we can charge for that good is €50. Okay, the maximum, the one person that is willing to pay the absolute most for this good is €50. That's how much they're willing to pay. That's it, they're done. There's no more, nobody else is going to pay any more. So what we see is that that's the maximum price, that is the willingness to pay by the first person for the first t-shirt. Now, if we produce 2, what we are saying here is, yes, there is a person that is willing to pay €50 for one t-shirt. However, there is the next person, or the marginal consumer, is only willing to pay 40. Now, unless we can actually price discriminate, which is charging different people different prices and the difference in price is not due to a difference in cost, assuming we can't, because you can't in a competitive market, that means that if we produce 2, we'd have to sell both of them for €40. And this person values it at 50, their willingness to pay is 50, but they'd only have to pay 40. Now, if we were to produce a third, what we would see is first person was willing to pay a maximum amount of 50, the second person was willing to pay a maximum amount of 40, and the third person was willing to pay a maximum amount of 30. So what we're actually seeing here is that if we charge from the horizontal method €30 per t-shirt, we could sell 3. Or if we go up at 3, we're saying, what is the maximum amount a person would be willing to pay for the third t-shirt? And that's really important, because what we're getting now is the marginal consumer's maximum willingness to pay. And that's really, really important. So when we go from the bottom up, we're finding the maximum willingness to pay of the marginal consumer. Now, not to confuse you, but I just want you to know that, like, you know, with the law of diminishing marginal utility, that you have to lower price to sell more. The first person could be willing to buy the first t-shirt at 50. Then another person comes along and says, oh, I'm willing to buy this, the maximum amount I'm willing to pay for a t-shirt is 40. And then the first person said, well, do you know what? I'd actually like a second t-shirt, which is the third that would be sold, but I'm only willing to spend 30. So it doesn't have to be 3 separate consumers, but I just want you to see that it still works no matter which way you do it. One way that you can look, and don't forget essentially what the demand curve is all combinations of price and quantity demanded. But what we're doing is we're ranking along the demand curve from the willingness to pay the highest to the willingness to pay the lowest. That's what the demand curve is ranking. That's another way. So the vertical method, what it's calculating is what is the maximum price that the next consumer would be willing to pay for the next good. Marginal consumer, marginal good. I hope I haven't confused anybody. Reading the demand curve, we were asked, right, so what is the maximum price that we can charge or sell if we produce X number units of a good? Okay, so this is all we're saying. Looking at this, and I've said that, what's the maximum price? What's the willingness to pay? Okay, now, the second person isn't willing to pay as much as the first for the t-shirt, and the third person isn't willing to pay as much as the second person, and so on. So as I've said, we are ranking consumers in terms of their willingness to pay. Now, I suppose the next question is, why are consumers willing to pay so much for each t-shirt? Whatever it is, even if it's like, 1 euro cent. I mean, why are they willing to pay that much? And this is what I need you to understand. This is the jump that you have to make. We're going from willingness to pay to marginal benefit. Remember that what we are consuming is absolute rationality, and consumers are only going to pay something if it benefits them. Okay? So the price that the marginal consumer, the next consumer, is willing to pay for each good represents the amount that they value each marginal unit, the next t-shirt of each good. Okay? So the reason that the first person, all right, is willing to pay 50 is because they value that first t-shirt at 50 euro. Now, we're just going to assume 3 separate consumers. The next person is only willing to pay 40 because they value that t-shirt at 40 euro. That's the maximum that they value it. And then the third person is only willing to pay 30 as a maximum because that's the maximum that they value it. That willingness to pay represents their value of each marginal t-shirt. Okay? So therefore, the value of each successive unit of the good t-shirt, this much because they believe that it... Sorry, I mistakes here already. But basically what they're saying is they're getting the marginal benefit from it. They reckon that the first person that valued that t-shirt at 50 euro was getting a marginal benefit. Their lives are better to the tune of 50 euro. Right? No more than that, but to the tune of 50 euro. Their lives are 50 euro better, but it's not in terms of currency, it's in terms of the value that they will receive from wearing that t-shirt. The second person valued it, willingness to pay, a maximum willingness to pay of 40 euro because that person believed that they would get 40 euro worth of extra benefit from buying that t-shirt. And likewise with the 30. So the marginal benefit is the extra benefit measured in currency that the consumer receives from consuming 1 extra unit of a good. Excuse me, now let's have a look at this. We're going up from 1, touch the demand curve and across. This first person, and I've said it over and over again, but I need you to understand this, is getting 50 euro marginal benefit from consuming that first t-shirt. This second consumer is getting 40 euro marginal benefit from consuming that first t-shirt. The second t-shirt for the firm, but the first t-shirt for them. And the third consumer, different person, is getting 30 euro marginal benefit, extra benefit, just from consuming that 1 extra t-shirt. Now don't forget, if the price was 30, the first person would buy it and get extra benefit, more on that in a later video. The second would buy it and get extra benefit, and the third person would be indifferent. They would buy it or not buy it. Okay? Now, almost done. So we have said that there's, now just so I really need to go back here. So do not forget that the maximum amount, the maximum willingness to pay is represented by the demand curve. But if we can realize that consumers are rational and are only willing to pay that maximum amount because they will, or at least believe they will, get that amount marginal benefit, the demand curve, therefore, is the marginal benefit curve. And if we realize that this is the market demand curve for a society, the demand curve for a good, the market demand curve for the good, represents the marginal benefit to society from consuming that good. Now that is something that is very important. Where did I get that from? The demand curve represents the maximum willingness to pay. We rank along the demand curve from the highest willingness to pay to the lowest willingness to pay. Why are they willing to pay? They're only willing to pay that much as rational, logical consumers because they believe that they will get at least that amount of marginal benefit. That is the upper amount, I assume, of marginal benefit that they will get from buying one extra unit of a good. So if this is the market demand curve, that means that this demand curve represents society's marginal benefit from consuming this good, putting the person that will benefit the most first, the second, the third, and so on and so forth. Now, just to quickly finish this off, we've said that there's a limited amount of factors of production and they have alternative uses. Therefore, we want to put these factors of production to their best possible use. And a high price can ensure that that can happen. So let's have a look for the demand for one of the most, I suppose, important inputs or factors of production, which is land, but it's oil. Now, if we have, let's say, this is 60 barrels of oil, the numbers are the same, but this is the prices of the barrels of oil. Right? So at the high price, we have high value uses of oil. Why am I saying? How do I know they're high value uses of oil? Because they believe that they can get at least that much in terms of revenue. They can use it. That is the marginal benefit to that firm from consuming a barrel of oil. And the same is true for medium prices, which is whatever, I mean, that's a subjective statement. And low prices yield low value uses of oil. Not bad, I'm just saying low value uses of oil. So when we're talking about a low value use of oil, well, oil can be used to make plastic, which is used to make a rubber ducky. All right, maybe some people like to use it. I've never really understood the appeal of it, but hey, I'm not here to judge. A medium value use of oil would be like petrol for your car. I'm not here to judge either about that. And a high value use of oil is something like petrol for a jet plane. There's very few substitutes. If you want your jet to go, you need petrol. All right. Now, what I'm saying to you is that at something like a price of €10, what do we see happen? Well, what we see happen is that the high, the medium, and the low value uses of oil are perfectly acceptable. They're all in play, because if we're charging a low price for something, well then if we can still use it to create something of very little value. I have no idea how much a rubber ducky sells for, but maybe it's €1 or something, I really don't know. But as the price of oil rises, the low value uses of oil are not profitable. So therefore society, producers of rubber duckies, decide, well, I don't want to talk about producers, but consumers of rubber duckies would have to pay a higher price. Therefore they may use a wooden sailboat or something in the bath next time they're having a bath. I don't know. So the idea is that the demand curve for this factor of production will go to the high and medium values, or medium value uses of oil. And if the price rises again, only the high value uses of oil will occur. Now, I hope that doesn't confuse you. All I'm saying is the demand curve represents the marginal benefit. Why? Because the demand curve represents, in order of decreasing rank, the maximum willingness to pay. Therefore, why are they willing to pay that? They're only willing to pay that because they believe that they will get benefit equal to that price. So if this demand curve is the market demand, it represents the social marginal benefit from consuming whatever that good is in the market. Guys, I really hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next video.